Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us this evening. This is fiscal year 2023 budget discussion meeting of the Greenfield City Council. Today is Thursday, April 7th, 2022. It is 6 p.m. I'd like to welcome everybody who signed in, and I would also like to, at this particular time, call the meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded and videotaped by the Ways and Means Committee and GC TV 15. If any other persons present are recording are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. Okay, I don't hear anybody. Just a minute here. I don't hear anybody, so we will proceed with a roll call. Councillor Jarvis.
Here.
Councillor Jasorga.
Here. I had a little trouble, but I'm here.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad you are. Councillor Healy.
Here.
Councillor Toronto.
Here.
And I am Councillor Forgy. We have a full committee this evening. There are no minutes. We've been in deliberation on capital projects, so there are no minutes to be read. There is no public hearing scheduled for this evening either. The purpose of this meeting is to deliberate and vote on recommendations that will go out to the full council in regard to capital that has been proposed, capital budgets that have been proposed to us by the mayor. What I thought we could do, if it's okay with all the members of the committee, is I thought that we could read the order, or we don't necessarily have to read the order. We could read the item, and then we can deliberate, and then we can vote. And we will go on the order that's on the agenda unless anybody else wants to go differently. If anybody else has a different suggestion, okay. If not, then that's what we'll do. And please, this is your last opportunity to weigh in on what our recommendations are going to be. And I'll start it off by saying that the first item on our budget discussion is to approve a 4 to 6 year lease purchase agreement on 2 standard utility vehicles, SUV, not to exceed $99,000. This is going to be authorized coming out of Fund 1580, the Fire Prevention Revolving Fund. And it needs 2/3 of a vote on council floor because of the lease arrangements being a little bit longer than usual. So that's why there are 2 parts to this. We're voting the money, and the council has to vote the approval for it as well. Okay, so I'll open that up for discussion. Is there any discussion on this item? Councillor Jasorga.
I'm in favor of this, but we are buying 4 vehicles this year, and these are the only 2 that are SUVs. As I recall going through it, and I just wondered, this actually just occurred to me since the last time, if we have a policy on an actual policy on energy use, because it's kind of being thought of more and more about the gas guzzling. But I think that I would imagine that the fire chief absolutely needs SUVs. So I just wanted to bring that up at the beginning. That was something that I was concerned about. Okay.
Any other members of our committee that would like to speak to this issue? Councillor Jarvis.
I will, and I don't know if the fire chief wants to or not, but I'll address it. There is an energy agreement in place, but certain parts of the municipality are exempt because of the nature of their business. I believe that's how it reads. We've crossed this bridge before. with others. And quite honestly, with all the stuff that we throw in, I will say we because I used to be that we have to pack in those vehicles. If you had a small vehicle, you would be unpacking your vehicle at the scene to get to the items that you needed. Obviously, we need a little bit bigger vehicle than one that's available that would be energy efficient. We've got. I will say that every department that has requested vehicles this year has gotten their money's worth plus some out of their vehicles. We run our vehicles into the ground to where they almost need a tow truck. So I too will be in favor of voting for this. And I believe if I missed anything on the energy agreement on that, I'm sure that the rest of the people can fill us in better. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the subcommittee that wish to speak on this issue? Okay, I'm going to ask for a vote. All in favor of this item, please raise your hand and indicate aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? All right, any abstentions? This is a unanimous recommendation. It goes out to council. Next item is to appropriate $25,000 from 8402 Capital Stabilization for an ADA architectural study of City Hall. I'll open it up for discussion. Councilors.
Councilor Forgy.
Yes, go ahead, Councilor Sorga.
Would you like us just to raise our hand and call out, or how would?
Well, it is difficult to look at the count I'm not going to do chat room because there's only 5 of us, so it's manageable on the screen.
Just speak?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So 3 years ago, we spent $40,000 to evaluate all of Greenfield's municipal buildings and streets. All issues were listed in rank of importance: accessibility to the building, the programs and services, and public meetings, and lastly, accessibility to supporting services. I agree, I'm on disability access, that anything we do to make City Hall more accessible is valuable, but spending $25,000 for another study doesn't make sense to me. Issues for City Hall that are in the 436-page transitional report that was just finished 3 years ago. The Main Street entrance is not accessible, but an alternative route is. It is accessible for public meetings. And the bathroom has solvable issues. I would suggest that we spend the $25,000 on fixing the bathroom, adding a railing to the ramp, and looking at the accessibility issues at Sanderson Street. So I'm not going to vote in favor of plans.
Thank you, Councilor. Other councilors, any comments? I'd like to
How about me,
comment.
Chris? I got my hand up.
I'm sorry, Ed, go ahead.
Okay. I forgot we were speaking out, so I'll just speak out.
Very good.
I believe that this is wise money being spent. The City Hall gets probably the most use out of any building that we have in the city for visitors, for the public, including Sanderson Street, including the rest of them. $25,000 is not going to retrofit the bathrooms or correct the problems in the bathrooms. It's not going to put a new railing up. $25,000 does not go long. The study was done 3 years ago. I would like to see another study done to make sure that we don't miss anything in the City Hall that needs to be done further down the road, because then we'll be back at the table voting money again for another study because we missed something. I believe that we can appropriate the money. It'd be wisely spent, and that everybody uses this building in the city of Greenfield to pay their taxes, to pay whatever. They get their assessments on their houses. This is a highly used municipal building, and I think this would be wise money to make sure that a 3-year-old report hasn't missed anything. So I will be voting in favor of this little bit of money that's going to go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jarvis. Any other councilors wish to speak to this?
Councilor Healy.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
I have to agree with Councilor Jarvis. That study was done 3 years ago. It was focused on a major spectrum of locations. It didn't probably spend the amount of time that was required to fully identify all the issues in City Hall. I think this money is well spent just to focus on that one area, which is highly populated by citizens. And I think it's a good idea for that reason.
Thank you. And no, I'm not recognizing anybody, only the subcommittee this evening. So please understand, I don't want to be rude or anything, but it is the subcommittee's night to speak about all of this. So thank you, anybody who wants to participate and raise their hand, but this is subcommittee. So thank you. Councilor Toronzo, do you want to weigh in at all? Or are you all set?
I would just say, I mean, I would hope that things wouldn't have gotten overlooked in a 3-year-old study. I know that it was across a wide range of things. I would hope if we paid for something, we were getting it. Again, the services, regardless of how broad the scope was. But I would actually, I only tend to agree with this because of how much has changed in the past couple of years with costs. And I think that could be huge even if the same items are brought up. I think having a better idea of what the costs would be now as opposed to 3 years ago when they were significantly lower, I would say. I think that it might just be worth spending the money on getting more accuracy. Thank you.
I would like to add my opinion to this. The town hall is ADA compliant as it stands right now, to the best of our knowledge. To the best of my knowledge, I don't think people have had trouble accessing this building. One of my bigger concerns right now is that I personally, and I will vote this way, I'm not interested in another study for a building at this particular time. So I am not going to vote in favor of the $25,000 for an ADA study. I believe that a starting point for this should go back to ADA Compliance Committee. If they would like to revisit what they did in the report 3 years ago, that would be great. If they'd like to update that, that would be great. But at this particular time, I am not in favor of voting for any more studies. Thank you. Okay, having said that, I will ask for a roll call vote. All in favor, please raise your hand and indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Who is that, please?
Jarvis.
Thank you.
And Healy.
And Healy, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And any abstentions?
Aye. Mike.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Okay, it's split decision going as a recommendation out to council. I just want to make sure I record it correctly. Okay, thank you all very much. The next item for appropriation is $40,000 from Capital Stabilization 8402 for a health department vehicle. We did have our health director, Jennifer Hoffman, come and talk to us about the necessity of this vehicle. If anybody has any questions or things they'd like to say in discussion, please do so now. Opening up the floor.
Councilor Forgy?
Yep, Councilor
I'm in favor of this. I am just hoping that this vehicle will not be an SUV, but maybe an electric or hybrid vehicle. I'm sorry if I upset someone. that we work with the energy department. I believe that we're going to work with the energy department. That's all.
Thank you, Councilor DeSorga. Anybody else?
Councilor Healy?
Okay, please go ahead.
If I recall correctly, when the health department was on our call, they had mentioned that the reason why they wanted an SUV was for access during emergencies, or if they have to do inspections on a construction site for like septic or things like that that might require an SUV. That was her logic behind it. So that just to bring back that history from the previous meeting, I do support this.
Okay.
I didn't recall that.
Any other
Toronto?
counselor? Go ahead.
Councilor Smith?
Go ahead.
If maybe I'm recalling incorrectly, I thought that this was going to be a green vehicle. As I'm rereading the description, and I know that some of the descriptions weren't completely the same as some of the descriptions when we were speaking with the department heads. But I believe this was going to be a smaller vehicle in general. I don't recall them needing an SUV. But maybe I'm mistaken.
I agree with you, Councilor Toronto. I believe that that was what was stated as at the time, and I also believe that the city has a policy in place where they try to be as efficient as they possibly can in purchasing vehicles.
I think the one they have now is relatively small, isn't it? Isn't it kind of like the building inspections? They're like little hatchbacks or something? Or?
Yes, like there's a Yaris I know of.
Yeah, that's right.
And yeah, I don't think it gets much smaller than that. Any other counselors? Okay, so we will take a vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Is unanimous recommendation to the council. The next order that's up for us is to appropriate $1,848,900 for upgrades to the police station. We did have our police chief come forward and give us a presentation on all of this. It was the first presentation we have. So I know that maybe there are some of you out there that do have some questions, remembering back and everything else. I am aware that Chief Haig is on the line this evening, and even though I said I'm not going to take questions from or comments from others, if anybody wants to reach out to the chief and ask him any questions, I would appreciate if you let me know, and then we'll ask the chief to respond if that's possible. Chief, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, good. Thank you, Chief. Thank you for being with us this evening. I appreciate it. All right, I'll open it up to discussion. And if anybody's got questions for the chief or discussion amongst ourselves, please let us know. Counselors?
I do have one thing,
Okay.
Councilor Healy. You know, for the chief, some of the concerns we received from constituents about the Sally Port was in regards to the car wash bays, right? And their philosophy was you could go across the street and wash your cars. But if I recall correctly, and I might be confusing this with something else because there's a lot going on, but I think one of the main issues for the Sally Port for car washing was desanitizing after an event, especially with COVID and everything going on, having a place to sanitize your vehicles. That seemed to be a big constituent worry about just having a place for police officers to spray down their cars and spending the money on that. So if you could just touch base on why the car wash stations are a necessity, that'd be helpful.
Certainly, great question. One, just car washes in general, or the outside of the car, and that's just expensive anyway, just to buy passes to use at the car washes. But we also have the interior of the cars, which I wouldn't want to get too graphic, but there isn't always the best things that happen in the back of those vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not just talking about like kind of exterior making our cars look all shiny. We're talking about interior areas, which can become quite messy. So it would be more of an ability to handle that as opposed to subcontracting that out, which we would do, and we do currently.
Thank you. And just a follow-up question, if I may.
Yes.
The other concern was the 3 bays and one of them being used for evidence storage. And, we had some suggestions about, lockable rear boxes and different ways to store evidence. But I imagine there are some policies in place that require certain criteria for evidence storage in the police station.
We do, and I mean, we have kind of we've kind of skirted it, like I said, with the current garage sally port that we have right now is a temporary structure. It's not permanently connected to the building. Right now, it has our long-term storage in there. For those of you who have come, and again, I appreciate that, you can see that it's cages that are inside, but that's also where we're bringing in prisoners through the back door, which makes it very unsafe. The reason that we did the 3 bays was it would give us the ability to not have to tie up our current solo sally port with vehicles that we may impound, evidentiary purposes, and whatnot by having those 3 bays. But if you're going to only have the 2 bays, now you're tying up the second one, which could be used for sanitation, long-term storage, separation for safety for those prisoner intakes, and that was the reason for the 3 bays. If you go down to 2, yes, we might not be able to wash cars or clean them out, but you might be tying up another bay. And quite honestly, when we start talking about size, it's not that much of a size difference between 3 to 2 when you're talking about funding for long-term where we're going to be for the foreseeable future.
Thank you, Chief. That's all I had.
Anybody else have some questions for the chief at this point? Councilor Jasorga.
Chief, we had a discussion after your meeting this year. Did you plan to do the paving this year or the locker rooms?
I'm sorry, Counselor, I didn't catch the first part I heard.
It was exactly what you were doing. 2 of us remembered things differently. I remembered that the locker rooms were next year. Am I correct?
No, that was part of this year.
That's part of this year.
Yep,
So
that was part of the figure this year.
So you're not doing any paving or any carport this year?
The paving for the entire parking lot and the temporary carports that are going to have to come down are part of the following year.
Okay. All right. So, thank you very much. So I have a comment. I think that all of the things that the chief said needed to be done at the police station. The building's leaking from the top and the side, and it's causing, when I saw it, they were mold and mildew problems. So fixing dispatch and solving the water issues are necessary, as is a new sally port. But it's a 1,455 foot structure for $980,000. So that's $674 a square foot. I understand that prevailing wage is a lot, but that figure is very high. And I sent out a picture of, I asked it to go out, of the DPW building, which is a modular. The DPW building that we built was, I think it's 2,400 square feet of usable space. It's heated. It has bathrooms and, heated and water. And that was about $250 a square foot. So I looked a lot. These modular sally ports are everywhere. There's loads of police stations that have them, and it would be a lot less expensive. I found one place that had one that was 6,300 square feet, and it housed all their police cars, and it was only $80 a square foot. So I would vote in favor of the 105 for the water and 185 for the dispatch, and I would vote in favor of the money for the locker rooms, but I believe that figure for the Sally Port, it's an outdoor structure, is far too high. And I won't, if it's taken as a whole, I'm not going to vote for it. And that's why I think that figure is too high, but I think they're all needed.
Can I comment on that?
You can,
Counselor?
yes, please, Chief, you can comment.
I respect all the research you've done, Counselor, and what you're talking about are temporary structures, and we're talking about permanent structures. I don't need a temporary structure in the middle of my parking lot. That's not going to help with prisoner intake, security of our building. I understand that outbuildings can absolutely be cheaper, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about a permanent structure attached to our building, and I think that's kind of the difference in the two pieces. Again, I appreciate everything you're looking at, but that's also why we hire these folks that come in and look at what we're looking for particular reasons, and the permanent structure is what we're looking for. We don't want a temporary building. We're going to be here for the next 30 years. I don't think we want something that is a temporary structure in the middle of our parking lot. There's a reason for the flow that we're looking for with the redesign of the parking lot in year 2. Putting a giant building in the middle of the parking lot is not going to help our other issues that we have with that property. But again, I respect all the work that you've done, and I understand the concerns about the cost.
Councilor Jarvis.
Thank you very much. I will speak on this again. That we hired a professional firm who's nationally recognized for police and fire departments. They don't get a national recognition or an award for having a pretty building. They get awards for taking and doing studies, asking questions, and fitting the needs of the departments that are going into these buildings. I too deal with construction. Prefab buildings being delivered are nothing like stick-built buildings. We are talking about brick and mortar and an attached building for the safety of not only our officers, but the prisoners or the people being brought in to be booked. We went around this last year. We beat the chief up last year. We sent him out and said, come back with hard numbers, come back with figures, come back with a study, get a good designer in there to do it, and we will back you. We are sitting here again and I'm hearing from the same group of people that absolutely know nothing about law enforcement. I don't claim to be an expert on law enforcement, and none of us are experts except for the experts that dealt with the wants and needs of this department. This is going to be 15 to 20 years, probably 25, 30 years. I've sat in Chief Haig's position on 412 Main Street for a very long time, being promised and promised and promised, and they were all empty promises. The glasses were not even half full. I, for one, do not know if I can survive being part of a group that can't keep their word. I feel that strongly about it that this group, 9 of us have returned. There's 4 new members. 9 of us basically told this chief if he went out and he got us hard numbers and came back with hard facts that we would back him. I don't know if I can be part of a group that doesn't hold that promise. I'm sorry if I sound that I'm scolding people, but that's how passionate I'm about this. I sat there on Main Street and was handed empty promises for years. And we're doing the same thing to the people on High Street. And the people, the hardworking, dedicated folks of this town don't deserve that. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jarvis. Any other, Councilor Toronto?
I actually I know that we had kind of touched on this before, and it's a very small amount in comparison to the large amount, but revisiting the math that we talked about before, there's $3,900 that's unaccounted for on the list. So I didn't know if we had any clarification on that, because I'm totaling up that the parking, the flooring, the kitchen, and the booking area would all equal year 2 numbers. And then when I add up the rest of them, I'm coming up $3,900 shy. So I didn't know if that was typo, math errors, or just if it were to be cleaned up, if we just lowered the amount to match what was on there.
Okay, if I may for just a moment, if you take the priority, and I will ask the chief, my understanding was the priority was the water infiltration, the new Sally Port, the dispatch room improvements, and the locker room improvements. That was my understanding. Is that correct, Chief?
I believe you are correct, Counselor.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
So that's what we're going to
Second
vote
year would
on.
be just if I could just make sure, the second year was parking lot.
Yep.
Along with, actually, in first year too, it was a small amount, but it was the fencing around the back of the building.
Yeah, it was the 11 grand for the site utilities, right?
Yep. So that was part of the first year as well.
Right. So year 2 matched up with the remainder of those things, but year 1, I add all those: the water, the Sally Port, the dispatch, the locker room, and the fencing, and I'm at 1.845 instead of 1.8489.
Well, if you
If
look
I'm
at,
off by $3,900, I apologize.
That's why I was just
Maybe I was trying to bribe myself. I'm not sure. But no, whatever the math works out to, I'm good with. Those are the projects that were in year 1. So if my math was off, I apologize.
no, I just didn't know if we missed something.
no, that's good. Thank you for bringing it out to discussion. If we look at the article, the requested amount is 1,848,900, and out of that, the appropriated upgrades, 56,000 is being transferred from capital stabilization, and the rest of it is borrowing, the sum of which is 1,792,900. So there are 2 funding sources to this project, and I just want people to understand that what we're voting on this year are the following. Can we just go back down that list again? Water infiltration, new Sally Port, dispatch room improvements, locker room, and is it the $11,000 to secure site facilities? Okay, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate it. But we are voting on a total sum of money of 1,848,900. So wherever that leaves us, if it leaves the request short, this is the amount of money that we're voting on.
It would leave it large. Can we amend the amount in the motion?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so. Let's ask Liz. Hello, Liz.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. You can amend down. You can't amend up.
That's what I thought.
So if you would like to propose that amendment, I would suggest you take it out of the borrowing side. Not that it's huge, but it is doable.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have a motion then?
I'll move to amend that down to 1,845,000.
1,845,000.
Chris, if I may, I think you're going to have to, like Liz said, I think you have to take it out of you also have to correct the borrowing amount.
Right.
Oh, and
In
okay,
the language also.
Thank you.
and continuing
Sorry,
on that same motion, lower the amount of borrowing down to $1,789,000.
Okay. There's a motion.
Second, Jarvis.
I need a second.
Yeah.
Second, Jarvis.
Okay. Motion by Toronzo, seconded by Jarvis. to reduce the requested amount by a total of $3,900. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor of the motion to reduce, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay. Unanimous? So there will be an amended amount that will go out to council floor, reduced by $3,900. Okay. Is there any other questions, thoughts, comments,
That-
deliberations?
That was
Yeah.
a motion to reduce the figure, not to
That's
vote
correct.
on. But we
That
are,
is,
that we're not voting on it yet, right?
no, that we're reducing the figure, correct. Who did I see? Counselor Healy. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm new to this, so I'm still trying to figure out how all this works, but
This is perfectly great. Don't worry.
I do agree, 600 something dollars a square foot is fairly high. However, I want to understand the $980,000, that money there, it's an estimate, right? So if we don't use all that money, what happens to that money? Does it go back into the borrowing fund? Or do we have to allocate it to the police station?
Liz?
If the bid comes back at $720,000, at $480 a square foot, which is more reasonable, where's that money go?
So I'd ask Liz to answer that for us.
So you are appropriating money for a particular purpose because you actually are spelling out what each of the items are that you are proposing being funded. So need to be, if it was going to be used for something differently, you would need a reauthorization. So they would need, the police chief would have to come back and say, hey, I have 200,000 left. I would like to use it for X. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So if we do save money there in year 2, when he wants to pave his parking lot,
Yeah.
if we have that
There you
money
go.
allocated, we could reduce his request for the next year by that amount, right?
Right.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Just to follow up on that, what if there were, I mean, not to say there probably would always be some sort of request to use money, unless you're GSET somehow that we had that happen. But what would happen if there was nothing for it to go to, hypothetically?
It depends on what process you're in. If we had already bonded for the money, we would have to reappropriate it for something of like capital life. Like, for example, if it's 20 years, and we would have to reappropriate it for something for 20 years life. If it was a
Can't hear.
If it was a what?
We can't hear you.
Nope, we lost you.
We lost you, Liz. No, we still can't hear you.
still can't hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
If it's a ban not permanent, you can rescind the authorization. So it's a question of where you're at in the bonding process.
Okay.
And Counselor Healy, a ban is a borrowing anticipation note.
Right.
Yeah. So at first it's temporary, and then Liz would take that and go out to a permanent borrowing after so much time as the
Right.
project moves along.
And we would typically do that after we have a stipulated sum price to do the project, or is that something you have to do before the project is awarded?
No, this is that's true. It also has to do with timing as well. If you haven't spent anything, you don't go borrow the money. So if it comes in lower, you could at that point rescind it. It's just that sometimes things move along. In general, sometimes projects are fast and sometimes they're slow. And sometimes it makes sense if someone is going to say, I'm going to spend this within the next 6 months, the treasurer, because bonding and banning is a process,
Mhm.
will go ahead and borrow the funds. So,
Thank you so much for explaining that. That really helped. Thank you.
okay, good.
Are there any other questions or Councilor DeSorga, did I hear you?
I just have a comment.
Okay.
$674 a square foot is more than any other building that we're making in Greenfield. And I also wanted to respond to Councilor Jarvis. I always keep my promises. I didn't promise that. I didn't promise that we were definitely going to do this. I said that needed to be done. This figure came in much higher for an outside building than I imagined. That's all I'm going to say. And I would vote for part of it. I think they needed a Sally Port. I think it should be relooked at. So.
Okay, I'm going to move to a vote at this particular time. I'd like to once again say that we are voting on this vote. We've already amended the money. So at this particular time, we are voting on, let's see, 1,789,000, which is the sum of borrowing, but the total appropriation is 1,845. Thank you. Okay, this is also, when it goes to council, it's going to take a 2/3 vote. But for tonight, please indicate all in favor, raise your hands and indicate by aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, it'll go out to council floor with that recommendation. Okay. I have a little bit of paperwork here I want to keep track of. So, all right, our next order is, let's see. Our next order is for Main Street reconstruction. The sum requested is $275,000 to be appropriated for Main Street construction B2 engineering. To meet the appropriation, the request is for $100,000 to transfer from 8402 capital stabilization and to borrow $175,000. Open it for discussion. Okay, hearing no discussion. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor indicate by raising your hand, saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, positive recommendation. Before we go one step further, thank you, Chief, for being here with us this evening. I appreciate you taking the time to help us with a very complex project. So thank you. Next, we are going to an order, the Highway Fund. The sum of $200,000 be appropriated for the Highway Fund, and to meet the appropriation, transfer $100,000 from Capital Stabilization 8402, and authorize the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, to borrow $100,000. This is, as a, there's another piece of all of this. When Marlo was talking to us about this, we hear every year that we've got frozen Chapter 90 funds. So anything we could do on our own to be helpful, I think it's appropriate. Is anybody got any questions or deliberations or concerns? Okay, if you're ready to vote, all in favor?
Chris, I just had one, Toronzo.
Sorry, go ahead. I can't see all of you all the
It's
time.
fine.
So,
I thought of it afterwards, and if I may,
sure.
I believe Marlo is still on.
Yes, he is.
I just wanted to, I was just curious because I actually drove this way the other day. Is the Bascom Road paving going all the way to where it connects to Hoshop Road? Or is it still being cut off down at the bottom where it turns to dirt as you go uphill?
That's a good question. Thank you. So I should say our city limits are right to the bridge from Lampblack.
Oh, it stops at the bridge?
Stops at the bridge. Yeah, the town
Oh.
line is actually turns to gravel. That's
Right.
Gil's responsibility.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
I never knew where the actual line was. Thanks.
Yeah, we got lots of funky lines everywhere. So, thank you.
Okay. If we're all set to vote, all in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Councilor Jasorga, I didn't hear you. Okay,
Aye.
thank you. Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that's a unanimous recommendation. Our next one is an order for engineering Mill Street Bridge repairs. It's a request for $25,000 to be appropriated for the engineering of the bridge repairs, and it needs to be transferred from Fund 8402 Capital Stabilization. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor indicate aye.
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 Okay. Great. Thank you so much. Next one is an order for sidewalks. This one is to appropriate the sum of 136 be appropriated from the highway fund, and to meet the appropriation, transfer $36,000 from Fund 8402 Capital Stabilization and borrow $100,000. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, moving along. This is an order for Legion Avenue parking lot. The sum of $60,000 be appropriated for the mill and overlay paving phase 1 of Legion Ave parking lot. And to meet the appropriation, transfer $60,000 from Capital Fund 8402. Any discussion?
I just have a quick
Okay.
comment. I've been in that
Okay.
parking lot and it's in pretty bad shape. You think that parking lot is actually millable? And that's just a technical question. I mean, it seems like it's beyond that point to me already, but
That's for Marlo?
yes, it is. Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I sent along the lease, and there was also a map along with that earlier this week.
Mhm.
Sections 1 through 5. We did evaluate that. That will be okay for a mill and overlay, but the phase, what we'll call phase 2 in next year's request, is going to be much different. We have to meet new stormwater regulations, and it's in much worse shape. It'll need a full depth, Councilor Healy.
Okay. That must have been the area I was wondering about because some of that parking lot is fully spalled. It's in bad shape.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
that's it.
We did some core samples, just so you know, and we took some abutments out of that section back in fall of 2019. The underlying pavement, there's a few layers there, looked like it was in pretty good shape. It wasn't rotten, as we call blacktop. Bad word, but that's what we call it.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Councilor
welcome.
Jasorga.
So my question involves the lease policy.
Mhm.
I read it because it came out and it said we were responsible to salt it and plow it and one other thing. And so it didn't say we were responsible anywhere for us to be paving it. And I figured that probably went out for a reason for us to ask that question. And but I will say that was $3 a square foot for paving. I thought that was for the mill and overlay. That was a good figure. So, but it's just whether or not we should have been doing that was my question. Where we don't own it.
That That is correct. We do not own that parking lot back there. We own part of it. The other part is leased from Tim Grader. The lease, the background on this, the lease, we don't pay anything for the lease. So there is not a money exchange in regard to a lease. What we do is, per the contract, we maintain that property. So we actually plow it, salt it, and make sure it's in good operating condition. That is what I have been told in regard to the lease. If I'm incorrect, somebody needs to say so at this point.
Toronto?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was
Mike?
just going to chime in that, I mean, I don't per se have a problem with us taking care of the paving. I did, to follow up with Ginny, I wanted to point out that it does say on number 6 that all other maintenance of sections 1 through 5, except for the indicated in term 5 above, which said plow, sand, salt, and remove snow as necessary, will be the responsibility of the owner of the parcel. So I mean, that, at least as far as consideration of it, I don't think it's something that we couldn't do.
Marlo, please.
Yeah, so this goes back, the lease of this property goes back to the previous owner, 35, 40 years, I forget. I didn't bring the file home. The lease was renewing every 5 years, and all the leases said something a little bit different, and that we were responsible for maintenance in general of this section. And I'll say that at this point in time, to mill and overlay, well, let's back up the bus a little bit. For years and years, we had meters on those spots that were leased, and the city, had gained revenues out of that. I think we all may remember way back when the meters up on those big concrete stanchions we removed, or the abutments. So the intent here is that we have site control. We have a lease. I know what the lease says. I understand that. They've all said something a little different in 40 years. But being we have site control, we are we can legally do anything we want with that property to maintain it, because we have site control. We're under lease. So the intent here is to mill and overlay, restore it. We'll put some striping down on it. And the intent here is let the lease run out in the fall. We'll no longer be leasing the property. That's the intent here. That sums up in a nutshell, very small, but it's been 40 years. So.
Okay.
Wait, so we'll no longer be leasing it. Are we looking to purchase it?
No, the intent is to turn it back over to the now owner, Mr. Grader. It was Mr. Cohn for many, many years before that, maybe 100 years in his family, for all I know. But so that is the intent, that we turn it back over. It'll be turned back over to the owner. Will no longer be responsible in leasing that portion 1 through 5 on that map that was provided with the current lease.
Thank you.
Is this more of like a good faith, I don't know, payback for it?
Yeah, I mean,
kind of giving it back to him in the condition we got it in?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, we used it for many, many years for revenues, so on and so forth. And certain leases had a $1,500 a year on it, but for years and years and years, we paid nothing for the lease. There was no money exchange.
Right.
So again, to put it back into good shape and turn it over, I guess good faith is a good way of putting it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a pretty responsible thing to do.
Councilor Jarvis.
Yeah, I just like to just back that up a little bit, saying that we had parking meters on there for years. We've probably written plenty of parking violations that people have come into the town hall and paid their parking violations with. So I think it would be a good thing to move forward with and do.
I just need to clarify a point, if I may. Marlo, if you can confirm this. this 60 grand is not only for that small piece of property that we lease, but it's for the whole lot back there?
Yeah, the map indicates exactly what the mill and overlay is, sections 1 through 5. Yeah, and I think a portion of it is ours. It's really strange how the boundaries are back there, with that pie shape to a point, so to speak, near the old American Legion.
But we're going to also upgrade the lot that we own at that location. It's just not for the lease that we're doing this.
If any of our property falls into section 1 through 5, that's a yes. I don't know exactly where the boundary pins are.
Okay,
But anything west of that, Councilor Forgy, is a much bigger project for the future, because we have to meet stormwater regulations on the city side and all that good stuff. Kind of like we had to do with the Chapman Davis lot and behind Town Hall as an example for water runoff. And that also going to need a complete removal, replacement, or full depth reclamation.
right.
And so everything west of 1 through 5, you're saying is ours though?
Yes,
Okay.
except I think there's a small area right in front of Patriot, I guess it's Patriot Care now, that's owned by them.
Okay.
And I believe we just paved actual Legion Avenue coming off Wells this past year or two, if my memory serves me right. There's a lot of water under the bridge, but
Right.
pretty sure that's been updated. So if you envision the rest of the stalls, that the abutments are still there, that's ours, and that's going to have a whole new plan and look to it to upgrade it.
So are there any more comments or questions? I'm going to comment, if I may. Realizing the history of this lot and everything else, I understand, but going forward, it's almost like a barter. It's like we're bartering with the person who owns it. We will do this in exchange for the use of the lot. I appreciate that, but I'm really happy to hear that this is the last year of this lease. There's I don't know, doesn't quite feel right that we should be using taxpayer dollars to pave private property, but in exchange for that, we've gotten the use of the lot, and it's been a revenue maker. So I will be voting yes on this, but I'm glad to see that we're not renewing this lease.
Yeah, I think of it as a almost like returning the, if you rent an apartment, you lease an apartment, lease a house, you don't trash it and leave it for the next guy and just say, well, it's yours, you deal with it. I think even though I get like it might seem weird to some people that we'd be paying to do this to something we're not even going to use afterwards. I think it gives a good symbol for municipal working with private sector, and making it so we don't seem like a slum tenant kind of name for us. I think it's a good thing to do, just to cut ties on a high note. So I'll also be voting yes for it, is what I'm saying.
Okay, so we're ready to take a vote. All those in favor, please indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'm going to
Okay,
abstain. I abstain.
Thank you, Ginny. Okay, the next order, we have an order for a trash collection truck. The sum $285,000 to be appropriated, and to meet the appropriation, transfer $85,000 from 8402 capital stabilization and authorize a borrowing of $200,000. Discussion. Okay, hearing no discussion, we'll vote. All those in favor, please indicate aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that's a unanimous recommendation that goes out to council. Our next is an order to design Shelburne Road culvert replacement. $95,000 to be appropriated to design a replacement for Shelburne Road culvert, and the appropriation to come from Fund 8402 Capital Stabilization. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor so indicate by raising their hand. Aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Next one is to purchase a roadside mower. The sum of $50,000 to be appropriated to purchase a roadside mower. It says 1/3, but there's an explanation to it. And to meet said appropriation, transfer $50,000 from Capital Stabilization 8402. Discussion, but before we kick it off, everybody who's listening should know that the purchase of this roadside mower is going to be divided between 3 budgets in DPW. So you will see this again and again as we go through it, but this is the way that we can pay for this large purchase. Any discussion?
I'd just like to say, I think it's
Okay.
a smart way of going about it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Okay, all those in favor indicate raising their hand. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, our next order is to update fire suppression system at the transfer station. So the sum of $42,000 to upgrade the system, and to meet that appropriation, to transfer $42,000 from Fund 8402 Capital Stabilization. Is there any discussion on that? Okay,
I had a quick question. Sorry.
sure, go ahead. Mr. Healy, go right ahead.
Does this price include disposal of whatever coolant is in the system?
To my understanding, yes, it's all inclusive, Counselor Healy.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to vote on this. All those in favor, please indicate. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Our next one is repairs to the Sanderson Street building to appropriate $80,000 for the repairs of the Sanderson Street building, and to meet said appropriation, transfer $80,000 from Fund 8402 Capital Stabilization. Comments and discussions on this?
I have a comment. I'm going to vote in favor of this because the repairs there need to be done. But last year and this year, we were putting on things and not finishing the accessibility things. Last year it was the bocce court that we didn't add the other half of. And this year, this building has public meetings. For any of you who did take the time to read that 400-page transition plan, there are public meetings that are held here. And there were paving issues. And I just went down and looked again this week because I actually go and look at all of these places and that are not done. And I know that we can't reappropriate any of the money that we didn't spend, but it's hard to vote for those things. That's why I didn't vote for the bocce last year, and then look this year, that's not there. So that's my comment. I will vote in favor.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, I see none. So all in favor, please indicate. Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Next one is an order to purchase used bucket truck. The sum of $60,000 to be appropriated to purchase a used bucket truck for central maintenance. And to meet said appropriation, transfer $60,000 from Fund 8402 Capital Stabilization. Is there any discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. The next is inspection department vehicle, 40,000, to be appropriated for the inspection department vehicle, and to meet said appropriation, $40,000 from Fund 8402 Capital Stabilization. This is for the building inspector's office. We did hear the shape of the vehicle that they have now, and I think they got their money's worth out of it. So if there's no other comments, we'll just go ahead and vote.
I just want to say, I think this might have been that SUV, Derek.
Oh, okay.
I think that was this one for them to get access.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we all set? All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Positive recommendation. The next one is the school department. We have a request for teacher and student desktops. The sum of $100,000 to be appropriated to purchase teacher and student desktops, and to meet the appropriation to transfer $100,000 out of 8402 Capital Stabilization. Any discussions?
I just wish it were more. I wish we had budgeted the entire amount that was requested. But I'm going to vote in favor.
Okay. All right, everybody. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Our next order is for Federal Street School paving. The sum of $75,000 to be appropriated for paving at Federal Street School, and to meet said appropriation, transfer $75,000 from Fund 8402 Capital Stabilization. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. We move on. This is an order for GCET extension and related equipment. And the request was for $100,000 to be appropriated for equipment and related costs, to do a borrowing of $100,000 for that particular amount of money. Discussion, and I'd like to say to the members of Ways and Means that we did hear from Director Lunt. He did tell us that he did not need this money to move forward with his projects. We like that very much. And, so in order to dispose of this, we have to vote this down. So this is what we will do. A yes vote indicates we would vote for the money. A no vote indicates that we will not vote for the money. And that is at the request of the director of GCET. So if there's no more discussion, we'll take a vote. All those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, okay. It is defeated. Any abstentions? Okay. All right, we're back with the roadside mower again. This time, the source is going to come from another fund. It is request for $55,000 for another third share of the mower, and this time it's coming from sewer retained earnings, fiscal year 21 sewer retained earnings. Is there any discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor, so indicate, please. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it is unanimous. And anybody else? Nope, I guess that's it. Okay. Sewer upgrades, repairs, and replacements, the West Street Rehab Phase 2. And we did have a language change in the order. In the body of the order, it says reconstruction of Sanderson Street. It should be reconstruction of West Street in that order. The request is to borrow $150,000, and this is going to be paid back out of sewer retained earnings, and that's an enterprise fund. Okay, is everybody all set? Take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. This is an order for, to replace truck number 15. It's a Ford F-350. This is also a DPW request. The sum of $90,000 be appropriated to replace truck 15, a Ford F-350, and to meet the said appropriation, they're going to transfer money from the sewer retained earnings, fiscal year 21 sewer retained earnings. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Sure.
For
Go ahead.
Director Marlowe, for Marlowe.
Yep.
Do you, this was something that Councilor Jarvis brought up. Are you one of the ones that's exempted from looking for anything that's fuel efficient or?
I think a good answer for that is we're not exactly exempted, but we don't have vehicles to do a lot of our duties that are hybrid or offered electric. But I will tell you that this is what we call a 1-ton. It's just going to have a utility body on it. And all the smaller diesel trucks are pretty strict on their emission standards today. That's why they're so costly. This truck would have been about 60,000 5 years ago, but everything's bumped up with the emissions controls. So Carol is aware of everything I'm trying to do. She's trying her darndest to get us an electric rubbish truck, but they're just not available yet. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. I'm going to vote in favor of this. I just know some municipalities are making, policies where they just buy. I don't know anything about trucks or cars. I'm just going to, that's my qualifier. I can open the hood of mine actually. And I'm glad that I can do that. And so I'm not going to make comments on types of cars or anything. I just know that some cities are making policies, at least on their vehicles, and I just thought I'd ask if you were one of those exempted ones. Maybe at some point we'll be making a policy where we buy all electric cars. That's all.
Yes, we're in constant contact with Carol whenever I put my capital together and say, hey, is there anything out there yet? So anyways, yep.
I had a quick question.
Go ahead, Councilor Healy.
I noticed the old truck and the shape that it was in the photos you attached, that didn't have a plow on it. This truck's coming with a plow as well. Are you going to use it for snow and ice operations as well?
Yes, it'll more or less, when we have, well, the fleet's in getting pretty old, so we do have trucks that go down during a snowstorm. It'll be definitely a spare truck. It'll run the full storm if something's down, for a while, awaiting parts. Yes,
yeah, I just noticed on the quote there was a plow included, so.
Yeah, that's why I went to a 4-wheel drive. Not only that, we respond to sewer emergencies and sewer calls. The 2-wheel drive's a little tough to get around at times.
Oh, yeah.
So 4-wheel drive, and we'll have that extra plow in our toolbox, as you will.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, we'll take a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, move on to the next item. It's just an order for sewer inflow and infiltration repairs and replacement. This request is for the sum of $500,000, and the request is to borrow the money. We know that, according to the description that's given us here, we know that this is necessary in order for us to be ready to accept some grant money that will come along, we hope. Is that correct, Counselor? I'm sorry, Director Warner. I should call you Director Marlowe, but that's okay.
That's okay. I've been called the counselor plenty of times. I think I'm going to do that when I retire.
Oh, good luck to you.
So no, thank you for the question. I think a quick summary is that we had all the evaluations done under the consent order that was required of us, and by Wright Pierce, and they're saying $5.45 million to repair all the I&I issues that they found and documented. So we're working on a lining contract now, as I said in the last meeting. We have Green Mountain in the city lining pipes not as we speak, but they're in town now. And this is just another step. COVID backed a few of our projects up a little bit, so I didn't want to ask for a full $1 million right now. I want to try and catch our breath a little bit on all these projects. So like I said, the $1 million we're working on, we're going to be into that for about $850,000 or more before we're done. So I thought the $500,000 was appropriate as we are pursuing grants to help us along towards that goal of 5.45.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, please so indicate. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the next one is an order for a water main replacement. It's $100,000. And to meet the appropriation, we need to transfer that out of fiscal year 21 water retained earnings. Pretty self-explanatory. Any questions? Any deliberations? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you. This is an order, Willbrook Mill Field pH system. It's the sum of $125,000 to be appropriated to replace Millbrook Wellfield's pH system. And this is going to be borrowed. $125,000 will be borrowed. I'm just looking at this right now. Correct. Okay, that's it. Any questions? Any comments? Okay, all in favor, please indicate. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. We have an order to replace Oak Hill Actuator and controls. And this is, as we learned the other day, this is a priority for us. The sum of $175,000 to be appropriated to replace Oak Hill Actuator and controls. And this will also be a borrowing. Any questions? Any discussions? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we have an order, Rocky Mountain Tank valves, the sum of $105,000 be appropriated to replace Rocky Mountain tank valves and to meet the appropriation to borrow the sum of $105,000. Any discussion, concerns, comments? Okay, we'll vote. All those in favor, please indicate. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we're getting very close here. We have West Street Rehab Project, the sum of $100,000 to be appropriated for Phase 2 of the West Street Rehab Project, and to meet the appropriation, $100,000 to be transferred from fiscal year 21 water retained earnings. Any discussion? Okay, we will vote. All those in favor, please indicate.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. I do believe this is our last one, and this is the third part of the mower. So now we've got one complete mower being funded by 3 different sources.
I promise it's not in 3 pieces when it comes.
I hope so too. Okay, so the sum of $55,000 to be appropriated for a roadside mower which is 1/3 share, and to meet the said appropriation, $55,000 to be transferred from fiscal year 21 water retained earnings. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Any abstentions? Okay. I was just wondering what would happen if we approved 2/3 and not the last 1/3.
I was just gonna
I was gonna say that, but
Honestly, there's an answer to that. We would have to drop a bunch of the accessories, and then I'd have to find the money for the accessories. So that's
I see. Well, we're
Yeah.
glad you're going to get a complete mower. We hope that council will approve a complete mower. Okay, so that brings us to the end of everything we have. Is anybody got any other business? All right, so I just want to mention that our next meeting.
Question.
Oh,
Just
okay.
question.
Go ahead. Thanks.
With do we have an approximate date when we're going to be here? I know this goes at our next council meeting. Then when does our operating budget have to be sent to council for a vote? Do we have that date? I was just curious.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Liz, but I think it's May
Yeah.
19 or something that we're going to vote on the operating budget.
So it'll be in the May meeting. Okay.
Correct.
I
That's
just wanted to
correct.
get some kind of timeline here. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, no problem. Our next meeting is going to be on Monday, the 11th at 6 p.m. Going to see you soon. And this time it is for the general operating budget. We will be speaking first with the mayor, who will present her budget, and with our finance director, who will be there to answer a lot of questions I know we're going to have. So having said that, I want to just say I'm very appreciative of everybody who has worked really hard to get us through this first piece of capital budget. It's nothing glamorous about it. It's just a lot of hard work. And I do appreciate all of you on the Ways and Means Committee for your diligence. It's great. The second thing I wanted to say is I want to thank all the people, the citizens in Greenfield who have sent us emails regarding their concerns about different budgetary items and everything else. I assure you, we've seen them, we've read them. Some instances, there's not always an opportunity to write back to you, but we have taken them into consideration for our deliberations this evening. So again, it's very important you let us know. We appreciate the fact that you did. So thank you all once again. If there is no other business or no other comments, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I have one comment so that everybody will joyfully pick up their books. I got mine today. and
Oh,
It's absolutely fabulous. It's the first time you're going to pick up a book and go, you're going to love it. It's like, it's so, I'm not going to spoil the surprise, but you're
don't
going
spoil
to
it. No.
love that book. Okay? Thank
So
you.
the book,
on it.
thank you very much, Councilor DeSorga, for reminding us of that. Yeah, the books are available at the clerk's office. You can pick them up. Not a lot of time, so try to get them before our Monday meeting, although the content of the books and what will be presented is also online. So you can read it online to get yourself started. It's actually on the city website, and it is also in your council email. Okay, now I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Toronzo.
Okay, who made the motion?
Toronzo.
Okay, who seconded?
I'll second.
No, somebody did.
Oh, sorry.
Jarvis, did you second it? No. Okay, DeSorga. Thank you. All right. Thank you all again. This was not an easy meeting to get through. We did it. The meeting ends at 7:25 p.m. And thank you all very much.
thank you.
You're great.